In the small, remote village of Alder's End, an unsettling hush often descended after twilight. They whispered of a family in the woods, a bloodthirsty clan, feared even by the bravest of hunters. This family, the Valrics, were believed to be cursed werewolves, bound by a centuries-old pact. Their very lineage cursed to feast on the blood of the living to retain their power. Their home, a decrepit manor deep within the forest, was hidden by a dense fog that seemed to whisper secrets to those who dared venture too close. Legends told of how the Valrics would silently slink through the village, their bodies shifting seamlessly between human and beast, hungry eyes seeking their next victim. Each member of the Valric family carried a unique, twisted mark on their bodies, an insignia of their monstrous heritage. It was said that the children of Alders End sometimes vanished without a trace, only to reappear as pale specters wandering the village, their eyes void and hollow, as if their souls had been drained by the cursed family. One fateful night, a strange traveler came to Alder's End, claiming to know the secrets of breaking curses. He spoke of forbidden rites and ancient spells that could bind even the mightiest werewolves. Intrigued and desperate, the villagers saw hope in his words, unaware that the Valrics had been watching, their yellow eyes glowing with a bloodlust that had been stirred by the stranger's presence. As dawn approached, the traveler ventured alone into the fog-laden forest, the villagers watching anxiously from their windows. But the eerie silence persisted, and he never returned. Some said they heard low growls and saw shadowy figures in the distance, circling like vultures ready to pounce. Others claimed they saw the flicker of pale eyes staring back from the mist, as though the Valrics were daring anyone to challenge their dark reign. In the days that followed, the villagers realized the truth. The Valric family's curse wasn't one that could be broken. It was a pact far older than anyone could comprehend, one that bound not just the family, but anyone who dared try to disrupt their blood-soaked legacy. But rumors began to spread of a lone survivor, hidden away and still holding a fragment of the ancient curse-breaking spell. They say he waits, biding his time, while the Valrics continue to prowl, their bloodlust undiminished, hungry for any who dare defy them. And each night, as the fog thickens around Alder's End, the villagers brace for the next shadow to creep from the mist. For the Valric's curse was only just beginning. One night, as the villagers huddled in their homes, an unexpected howl pierced the air, a sound unlike any they had heard before. It was deeper, more guttural, filled with a rage that seemed to vibrate through the very earth. The elders exchanged glances, fear widening their eyes, for they knew that sound did not come from the Valrics. It was something new, something otherworldly, and it filled the air with a foreboding sense of dread. The howl grew louder, spreading through Alder's End and drawing closer to the manor in the woods. The Valrics, stirred from their silence, prowled along the outskirts of their cursed estate, their eyes gleaming as they watched the shadows shift in the darkness. It was then that they saw him, the stranger who had vanished days before. But he was changed, his body no longer human but monstrous, a creature not bound by the laws of man or beast. This newcomer had become a werewolf like them, yet different, an abomination born from his encounter with the Valric curse. It seemed he had discovered a forbidden power, allowing him to harness the curse's energy and mold it to his own twisted form. The Valrics, long bound by their ancient blood pact, felt a strange pull, an unsettling tug, as if their own curse was being twisted and reshaped, threatening their very existence. The stranger turned werewolf lunged forward, and the Valrics met his assault, a feral battle igniting in the moonlit clearing. Claws and fangs tore through the night, yet no blood was spilled, for each wound seemed to knit itself shut in an instant. The forest filling with snarls and growls as two forces clashed, one ancient and controlled, the other riot and chaotic. As the fight dragged on, one of the Valric children, a young girl with eyes the color of the darkest night, whispered an incantation under her breath. Her words echoed through the trees, summoning an eerie wind that seemed to carry whispers from ages past. The stranger faltered, momentarily caught in the spell's web, and in that instant, a dark presence stirred within the Valric family. It was the spirit of the first cursed ancestor, a shadowy figure who held the key to the curse's origins. But before the stranger could be subdued, he let out a chilling laugh. vowing that he would uncover the secret that bound the Valrics to their curse, and that he would be the one to break it, or die trying. With one final, bone-chilling howl, he vanished into the forest, leaving the Valrics shaken and, for the first time, uncertain of their own fate. In the days that followed, strange symbols began to appear around the village, etched into doorways and tree trunks, symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the night. And some of the villagers swore they saw flickers of movement in the forest, shadows that looked like neither wolf nor man. The Valrics, too, became uneasy, aware that the stranger was still out there, lurking, waiting, learning. Now, as darkness falls over Alder's End each night, the villagers know that the stranger's curse has only begun to weave itself into the very fabric of the forest, and while the Valrics remain powerful, there's a growing sense that they're no longer the only force to fear in the woods. The curse that once bound only them may soon spread to all who dare step into the mist. For in the coming darkness, there are whispers of a new curse one even the Valrics cannot control. In the days following the stranger's disappearance, Alder's End fell into a deep, ominous quiet. The villagers dared not speak of the symbols etched into their doorways, nor of the strange shadows flitting along the edge of the woods. As if unseen eyes were always watching, an unshakable fear had settled over them, woven into the night itself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a figure appeared in the center of the village. It was Lyra Valric, the youngest of the cursed family, her dark eyes gleaming with something like desperation. She'd come alone, hands raised to show she meant no harm. Yet her presence alone was enough to send the villagers retreating into their homes, locking their doors against her. Lyra's voice carried through the village square, soft yet laced with an urgency. "We have all been cursed anew," she declared. "Something darker than even the Valrics is stirring, and it comes for us all." The elder of the village, a frail but sharp-eyed woman named Maris, dared to step forward. She met Lyra's gaze, a mixture of fear and defiance in her eyes. "Your family's curse is yours alone, Valric," Maris said. "Why would you come here, seeking our help?" But Lyra shook her head, her voice trembling. "The curse is spreading," she replied. "That stranger who vanished, he's learned the truth, something even my family did not know. Our curse was not born from darkness alone. It was twisted by a presence far more ancient than any of us, a presence that lies buried beneath these woods." At that, the villagers exchanged glances, whispers of old folktales passing between them, legends of a forgotten creature, sealed away deep underground, whose blood was said to have seeped into the roots of the forest, infecting the land with an insatiable hunger. Lyra's gaze grew distant as she continued. "The stranger is trying to release it, hoping to bind its power to himself. But he doesn't know, he doesn't understand what it will unleash. I came to warn you, to ask you to help me stop him before it's too late." A tense silence followed, broken only by the distant howling of wolves, their cries layered with a note of urgency, as if they, too, sensed the encroaching doom. After a long pause, Maris nodded, her voice firm. "We will help you, Lyra, but if your family has deceived us, we will ensure the Valrics pay for the curse that has haunted us all." That night, Lyra led a group of villagers into the forest, down forgotten paths and across glistening pools that seemed to reflect images of things that were not truly there. She explained the origin of her family's curse, how it was a punishment for disturbing an ancient burial ground that no mortal should have dared touch. But what lay beneath, what had truly bound the Valrics for generations, was a slumbering spirit of vengeance, a creature the Valric ancestor had summoned to serve him, but instead had cursed him. With eternal hunger, the group came to a clearing, where the air grew thick, and a chilling silence blanketed the trees. Symbols glowed faintly on the ground, forming a circle that pulsed with dark energy. And in the center stood the stranger, his face twisted in ecstasy as he chanted words in a language lost to time. The earth beneath him trembled as cracks formed, seeping a dark mist that spread outward like the roots of a tree, crawling toward the village. But as they approached, the ground split open, and from the depths came a clawed, skeletal hand, its fingers curling around the edge of the earth. Lyra gasped, and in that moment, the stranger turned, a triumphant gleam in his eyes as he laughed, his voice echoing into the night. You thought the Valrics held the curse, he sneered, his voice a low growl. But it's only begun. With a rumbling crash, the ground beneath them gave way, and the ancient entity, the spirit that had once cursed the Valric family, rose from its tomb. Its eyeless sockets glowing with a darkness that consumed all light. Its voice, a guttural whisper, filled the forest. You who disturb my rest shall know hunger everlasting. The villagers, frozen in terror, could only watch as Lyra and the stranger faced the creature, each with a different intent. And as the darkness spread, Alder's End was swallowed by a creeping shadow, one that carried the insatiable hunger of the ancient spirit. Now, the forest around Alder's End is alive with whispers, the soil dark with an ancient curse that none dare disturb. Some say they still see Lyra, her face pale and haunted, lurking along the edges of the forest, guarding a secret older than time. And each night, the villagers brace themselves, for they know the hunger that grips the forest is growing stronger. One day, it will not be satisfied with the Valrics alone. As the darkness closed in and the ancient entity loomed over them, Lyra felt something shift within her. She understood then that the Valric curse had been more than a punishment, it was a bond. A tether between her family and the village, a pact to keep the spirit contained. Her ancestors, bound by their hunger, had served as unwilling guardians, their monstrous nature forged to protect Alder's End from this ancient evil. Determined to end the curse and save the village, Lyra stepped forward, facing the skeletal creature with newfound resolve. She began chanting an old Valric prayer, a chant passed down through her family for generations, though none had ever known its true purpose. As her voice rose, the words took on a life of their own, resonating with the trees, the wind, and even the ground beneath them. The spirit halted, its eyeless gaze turning toward her, and in that moment, the stranger lunged, attempting to seize the creature's power. But Lyra's voice grew louder, drowning out his twisted chants, and a brilliant light radiated from her, spreading outward like a shield that separated her, the villagers, and the spirit from the stranger's grasp. The ancient entity, sensing the power of her words, let out a shuddering sigh, sound like the release of ages of torment. It gazed at Lyra, its form softening, its rage ebbing away as her chant reached a fevered pitch. And then, with a blinding flash, the spirit disintegrated into a flurry of ash and light, scattering into the wind like a forgotten memory. In its place, the ground glowed faintly, a warmth spreading over the forest as though it, too, had been freed from a heavy burden. The Valric curse had been lifted, and the hunger that had plagued her family for centuries faded, leaving Lyra feeling light, whole, and human for the first time. The stranger, robbed of his dark intentions, collapsed, his powers drained. The villagers surrounded him, ensuring he could do no further harm. Maris, the elder, approached Lyra, her wrinkled face softened by a rare, genuine smile. "You've done it, child," she whispered. "You've set us all free." The villagers embraced Lyra, the fear and hatred that once separated them replaced with gratitude and warmth. They returned to the village together, their steps lightened, the shadows that once haunted Alder's End fading into the night. In the years that followed, Alder's End flourished, free of the curse that had haunted them for generations. The forest, once eerie and forbidding, became a place of peace, its trees vibrant and its air fresh. And Lyra Valric became a legend, the girl who freed both her family and her village from an ancient, unbreakable curse. As for the Valric family, their dark legacy transformed into a story of redemption and courage, a tale whispered to children as they grew up, teaching them that even the darkest of curses can be broken by the light of a single, brave soul.